Welcome to Station WBMCT, Black Middle Class Talk, where we talk, get down, throw the communication around, message, receiver, feedback. Let's get it on. Your host, CC, and your co-host, EB. Let's talk, communicate. All right. Welcome aboard. Another Wednesday, another week to discuss the issues of the day. Welcome to station WBMCT, Black Middle Class Talk. The subject of the day, as always, we have four sections of the hour show. The first section is usually news, domestic news, and international news. But we have a guest today. And we have a guest because the subject of the day is the Department of Education. Was it effective? Because to me, and I say was, I think it's being dismantled, but that's for debate. Our guest is going to give us his insight on what he thinks is happening with the Department of Education and his perspective. We're just regular people here on the show. There's no well, I don't know. Maybe we have experts. I ain't gonna say we have experts or don't, but we do have opinions and we do have a voice, and that's what the show is for our voices, so that we can speak. So because that's our power. Our power is in our voice. And so that's going to be. We're going to switch over, and we usually do domestic and international news on the front, and now we're going to do it. In the second section. Then the third section is going to be on the topic board, which is going to be politics and education. So it's going to tie into the subject of the day. And then in entertainment, at the last part of the show, we just have a little fun talking about entertainment because basketball is the thing that's going on today. In this season, we're going to have some insight on that, or just discussion, not insight, just open discussion for a little entertainment there. But to start the show off, EB, how you been doing, brother? I know you had a long ride, man. You went down there on Mother's Day, took care of mother, and took care of business, man. I'm proud of you, brother.
Exactly.
You from the old school, man. Yeah. Who makes a 16-hour trek in less than 4 days? But my Superman, he takes care of business. He honors his father and his mother, and I appreciate that, brother.
Appreciate you.
And so we're gonna get. Did you have anything you want to say?
Oh no.
Before we get the guest in here.
Bring him on
Okay, the guest today is Uche. And he's the owner of the website 1865 Free Money, right?
Yes.
Free Money in 1865. He's gonna have to, before we get into the subject, he's gonna have to tell us what that means. So let's go ahead, Uche. Tell us what that, before you go into the Department of Education subject. We want to get your insight. I want to know what this 1865 free money, because I ain't see no free money in 1865. Just hopefully freedom. Didn't even see freedom. Go ahead, brother. Tell us about the name, then tell us about the education department.
Well, 1865 was the year that we actually became free, supposedly, right? And the free money basically comes from the business that I actually run. I run a business. Promo, help, scale business. So it's basically unlocking free money.
Okay. Good. I like the history. I love the date that you threw in there. But come on. Now, the subject of the day is the education department. And the reason why I bring this up, though, is because I'm not sure in today's world. Now, the education department, when I came up, I think it was pretty effective for me. I mean, from a personal perspective. But now I noticed that the things have changed a lot, especially under the new administration. So you give us your insight on this Department of Education. What's your view is on it?
Well, towards currently,
any way you want to see it. Any way you want to see it.
Well, see, my biggest thing was that, so the Department of Education didn't come into effect until like 1979, if I'm not mistaken.
You're talking about when Carter I think you're referring to when Carter made it a cabinet position.
Yes.
You know, that's where he sits around when they have people sitting around the round table. I think that was Carter, but it's been through different reforms since 1867. Now, you know, it just kind of changed through the years, and now it has, what, a $268 billion budget or something like that. But over time, but that's what you're talking about. To answer your question directly, you're referring to Jimmy Carter made it an official cabinet position.
Official department, right?
Yes, department.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
cabinet position. Yes.
Right. Well, yeah. See, because I look at it like more like this. You know, I hear a lot of people discuss and talk about the issues of, oh, he's getting rid of the Department of Education. But my thing is, what have we actually gained outside? So if we actually, a lot of the issues is with the funding and where it's being dispersed, you know, for special education, special types of education that the actual Department of Education fund, right? So if those are dispersed, or let's say put in different places and still enacted, what will we be actually losing with getting rid of the Department of Education?
Okay, so you hit and I just happened to say that up front. I think the budget is $260 billion.
It's the fourth largest budget.
It's the fourth largest
It's
budget.
the fourth largest budget.
Wow, in the government,
In the
federal government.
Yes.
Okay, and so Uchi, what I think what you're saying is the distribution of those funds. Are you questioning where they were going or how they were going? Is that
No. What my thing is that they were saying that the budget, the end of the budget, you said, is quite large. Where is a lot of that funding actually going outside of the actual special funding that is going to different places, different education places, right? So if that budget is that large, but just say, for instance, that the things that we need, the special education, the pre-K in certain places, like the things that are necessity to spend, and they are actually find other departments that could also fund those things. What will we be actually losing by getting rid of the Department of Education?
Well, that's what yeah. And by the way, can you pull up the screen to show that? Let's just see what the function. Now, I pulled this off Wikipedia, the function of the department. Let's just say, starting out, this is the Department of Education purpose. Now, this is why I got it off Wikipedia. It says establishing policies on federal financial aid for education and distributing funds. That's probably what you're talking about. Collect data on American school, disseminating research, focus national attention on key issues and making recommendations. Then the fourth one, prohibiting discrimination, ensuring equal access to education. Okay, that's what they have as far as their goals. Now, do you want to take a stab at what Uche is
Well,
speaking
the
to?
thing that you saying is that you saying there's other departments within the federal government that could cover some of those programs, be it special education, K1, K2, yada yada yada. But what my issue with is when you start taking away the funding, because think about, you know, after school programs, a lot like bands and all those things with finances all through. And so we take away all of these programs and you're saying, okay, well, they don't need that. So you shave that. So then again, that's what you say when kids get out of school is that, you know, you talk about violence, you talk about things because they saying is that kids are not bad. Kids are just bored, you know, and you allow that opportunity. So if you had those after school programs, you know, the 4-H, you know, all these things that we had when, you know, but then again, that was during the time when we was going, and me and Uche had discussed once before, he talking about the difference that's how things was being taken care of in the education program when I was a child as opposed to now. You know, he had school-age kids in school, so apparently, you know, he gonna have, you know, insight as for it, and he recognizes. So I would ask, you know, I asked him that question. I'm saying, so if they take away this money, and you know, because you know, the main thing that I see is that what they saying with the Department of Education is that they saying they want to return it to the states. I have a problem with that.
Well, I think. Go ahead, Uche. Go ahead.
Well, see, okay, so the thing is that I look at for as since it's been the inception of it, how has our school system got better or worse, right? And you made a good points a lot with the, the after school 4-H different programs or things of that nature. Majority of the actual school budget altogether across the country comes from the actual states already. Majority of the funding.
I agree.
So the federal government has been an aid to what the states already do anyway. So
Well,
if you
hold it.
return, a lot of that back to the actual states, in hindsight, based on how I saw what the plan was, it's the actual funding part that's where a lot of that money is being going. That's the actual problem.
Right. And let me correct. I'm not sure about, as far as, I'm going to have to put a disclaimer on what I just agreed with you on. I was going along with what you were saying, that as far as I thought the states get the chunk of money from the federal government, and then they determine how to distribute and how to use it.
Yep.
Now, that's what I meant. No?
No, you can check it, but majority of the funding from this actual each individual state's school budget comes from the actual state. The federal government is just an aid to that, but the majority of the funding is actually coming from the states already.
So you're saying the federal government just supplementing what is already in place? Okay.
But the thing is that is an issue for me is that if you return it to the states, is that if you don't have no federal input as far as like how education is dispersed, and I ain't picking on no particular state. Take Louisiana or Mississippi or Alabama, for example.
Mm-hmm.
To think that you would put that in those folks' hands. I mean, because like say, when I graduated in 1979 is that the blacks sat on one side of the dining facility, the whites. It wasn't mandated. It's just like we talked about before. You just go where you're comfortable at.
All right. Okay.
So that I'm not saying that part of it, but I'm saying as far as like you have schools that are not getting that same funding, because last week we had a show on desegregation as far as like what the goods and the bads of it, and the understanding and the way that I had, and I talked to my mother about it, and she said is that it was never the intent of African Americans. Is the reason why they was fighting for desegregation is for us to have the ability to sit in the classroom next to a white kid. Is that we were saying the same thing that we're talking about with the education. I mean, the Department of Education. It was funding. Right. Is that why we are not entitled to that same funding which our families and our parents and our whatever, their tax dollars, that's what's causing that. Right. That's what is putting that money up there.
And so which
is still going on.
All right, and I want to emphasize and clear up what you're saying to make sure what you're saying. The money is getting to the state. You use Louisiana as an example. It's getting to the states, but the white people in charge of the money say, hey, I'm not going to send that to the black side of town. I'm going to send that to the white side of town. And that's
right, because you look at how the schools are kept.
Okay, right. That's fine. I just want to make sure that's the point. Now, Uche, do you at this day and age, because we're talking 1979, 1984 for me, in your time period, you have kids in school. Are you saying is that the discrepancy that you're seeing? By the way, I put that description up there. I put that description up there about what their goals are, the education, and that wasn't one of them. What you just said, that might be a flaw in the system, which it is. But I'll tell you my take on the Department of Education in this time frame is that I'm agreeing with both of you to say it needs a total rehaul, and so Trump is destroying it. If he ain't getting money out of it, he's going to destroy it. I see this budget actually went up $14 billion more. I don't know what that was about, but I'm with. I hate to say it like this, but I'm with tearing it down. He's tearing down pretty much everything in the United States anyway. And I think as far as black people are concerned, I don't think we need to be up in arms, because I think it does need to be tore down. Because the justice, now we're talking about education, for instance, the Justice Department. Black people where I'm from, we always call that just for us. Now we get into the education department, it's the same thing, especially today because I'm looking at kids coming out of school that can't even read at their grade level.
And so, and that point right there is the thing I say. Like, we've been had a system in place. You know, you say since '67, I say since '69, but anyone '79, but either one of them, that system has been in place. And what has it benefited the actual students that's actually graduating then and even now? If the reading level is so far down, but like you said, what you're saying is true. And in a lot of these areas, the education is down, the math scores is down, reading level is down. So it's been in place for so long. Where has it benefited?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
But then again, when you ask question where it benefited, and then it's easy for you to flip over to where the issue is. We go right back again to funding. You look at the fact as to what do teachers make? They make very low salary. And so now is that, and then you have these schools, is that you have teacher per student, and the private school is like 1 in 5, and the public school is like 1 in 25.
Okay.
One teacher per 25 students. You know what I'm saying? But they pound all in because they closing some schools. So what are they gonna do? They gonna put all those kids in that school, and then and that's a
bring that gold sheet up back up again. Real quick, go ahead. Real quick, let me just look at this, and we got another 2 minutes. But I think that's what you guys was talking about, and you're throwing out a lot of data, and I think that goes under they collect data on American schools and disseminating research. I hope that's where you're getting your research at, and if not, that's where they're failing at, because they got enough money, they should be able to give us some accurate information instead of us saying. And Uche, I'm sure you're into that data thing, and I'm sure you've seen the data to prove that what we're saying is not off base, right, Uche? But you go ahead, and I'm gonna give you the last word, Uche, on this subject, right?
So, and I'm gonna say it like this, and I'm gonna end it just like this. And I hear what you're saying. If you were to actually fund these schools fully, what would it look like to make kids that don't want to learn?
Right. Now that would be a local policy in the school, right? Unless you're saying make a federal standard, because that's not in the goals of the Department of Education. That's a state issue.
Right. And even with the state issue, is it really a state issue that if kids don't want to learn? Because a lot of the foundation comes from a certain place. So even if you fund, like, because I live in a very highly funded school district, but even that, you have kids that just don't care.
That's right. Now you're getting to the parenting, I think. We're going
I was
that
saying, that's what,
we can have you back.
We had that back.
We can have you back to talk about that, and we'll follow up on this anytime you want to. But I appreciate you coming on and giving us your insight. And run that by us again. Run your plug by us again with your website where people can find you.
1865freemoney.com. I do web design and app design. We set up any types of apps web websites.
Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, man, I appreciate you coming on. We're going to take this quick break. You're always welcome back at
I appreciate y'all having me.
All right, thank you, brother.
All right, big dog.
All right, we come back after this break, go to domestic and international news. Thank you. All right, we're back. That was a good opening, brother. I really
Very good
appreciate that.
segment.
And a
Very
good
good
segment,
segment.
and we will talk about parenting eventually. But back to what we always start with: international and domestic news. What you got for me on domestic news?
Well, today that we got on domestic, we just like like Bob Barker used to do, is that when he getting ready to give out a prize, he used to stick his hand in the basket and pull out and whatever. And that's the way we can do with domestic news. We can put our hand in the basket and come up. Okay, the first thing we got Kash Patel. He's he's being interviewed. I mean, at the Congress, and it's like the guy said, is that he's a disgrace. He's a disgrace. He wouldn't answer no questions. He kept being smart, arrogant. But then again, that's what we have in these positions now. He just falling off his boss. So he don't answer no questions. Okay, the second time we go in the bag, we pull out. Oh, Trump. Trump said that's a news reporter asked him. He said, "Sir, what do you think about the hard times that the American people are having from a financial standpoint?" He said, "Well, as long as I'm trying to fight for Iran, these are his exact words quoted. He said, I don't care about American financing." Mm-hmm. So basically, he's saying, if I heard, and I don't know whether you can, I'm pretty sure that his base would dissect that to mean something different. But I dissect it to mean he don't give a damn. Okay, so that's what I get from that. Mm-hmm. maybe do. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying these are words, and like saying what
who do? Trump? You
right?
Trump?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay, so
we're past that thing. We can go ahead and.
He said that boat didn't.
That boat didn't sail.
Didn't sail.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have heard that, and this is not being well reported, is that. I lost my train of thought.
Well, you're talking about Kash Patel and the drift and the Trump drift. And let me jump in there and say that there are unqualified people in qualified places. Where yes. Trump has totally hired unqualified people that are just lapdogs. He didn't really quit. That was his whole thing. He was not looking for qualified people. He was looking for people that are going to be loyal to him.
Yes.
With America's under attack, in ways it's never seen before. This is unprecedented what we're going through. And when the dust clears, I'm not sure what America's going to look like. And that's my thing. I think what Trump is doing, he's tearing down everything he can get his hand on and pulling all the money and trying to pocket money, and he's doing a good job. He's a multi-billionaire now, which he might have had $1 billion in loans when he first came in, but now, I mean, he's legitimately pocketing money. I mean, the last one I heard, he's selling Venezuelan oil, and the guy that this man's we're the lowest of the low as a country right now. Right. I mean, you talk about a far and fast. That's where we're at right now. And so with that domestic news, right, it ties in international because right now we got a major war going on. And Trump he started a war, illegal war, by the way. And that's another thing. Everything Trump is doing is illegal. You can't even keep up. You lose count. In fact, every time I turn around, I ask myself, can he do that? Yeah. And then the answer is, no, he can't do that. It's illegal. Right. And so, it's such confusion now because integrity, every system is built on integrity. You can put things in words and constitution this, constitution that, amendment this, amendment that, until you have people who have integrity to implement these things, as we've been having. Well, for black people, that's another story, because we can tell the story all day. Right. This story hasn't, the stuff you put on paper, as who's that, John Lewis said, be true to what you put on paper. America has never been true, as far as black people is concerned, to what they put on paper. Exactly. We've been fighting. Martin Luther King was so eloquent in the way, his words and the way he said it. America signed a bad check, and it came back insufficient funds. That's where we're at. We're still there. Yep. And so you see the Department of Education, you see this budget that they have, and you're looking at this war. Yeah. This $1 billion a day war. I mean, they're hiding the cost. This is our money. We pay taxes too. Everybody pays taxes. And everybody's in America is getting screwed right now because of lack of integrity. Like they say, everybody, welcome to the party. This black man would say. As far as America, what America is seeing right now, we've seen it for 250 years. Yeah. But back to the war. This war, it's just, to me, it's illegal, but it's abhorrent, so to speak. Yeah. And you got Netanyahu over there committing genocide. Yeah. Still. I mean, that's not even talked about. You know, the media has been captured. If Biden had did a fraction, or Obama had did a fraction of any one thing that Trump is doing, the media would cover that for 15 minutes in the evening news and leave the last 10 minutes of the evening news just for what, good feeling. We're in trouble.
And then they go back to what you were saying about the international, is that they do everything they can to deflect, to try to get our eyes going in a different direction. They blew up a boat the other day, you know, in Venezuela water, you know, and that's crazy, you know. But but like you say, we have become so desensitized to that. You know, at one time we're like, oh man, that's horrible. You know, they just killing innocent people.
That's right.
You know, but then again, they put it up under the frame. As long as they say that they're drug runners, we don't pose to ask no more questions. We say they're drug runners. Now, how is it all the other things that they have done and we turn out to be a lie? How we just supposed to go and believe that?
And you're talking about you were talking about in South America, where
in Venezuela. Yeah, in Venezuela.
Oh yeah, I thought you was talking about the war in the Middle East. So which like I say,
no, I'm just saying. I was just saying with the war, I was saying is that they doing that deflection thing. That deflection thing is to turn the conversation away from the thing, like you said, it's a legal war that he's running. And then like going along with what you're saying about that is that Trump get bored real easy. He's bored with this war. He said he just wish he can move on with something else.
By the way, that's an insult.
What is that he's bored with?
He's bored with the war.
Yeah,
whenever whoever said that, and if he said that, either way, that's an insult to American military.
Yes, it is.
You got 13 people dead out there.
Right.
Multiple injuries.
Right.
And that's in America. Think about the girls' school that he bombed with the Tomahawk, and the number of people who were doing just minding their own business. Right. And here comes the United States. We're going to free you, right? And so, but going back to your distraction, I don't think that people even look. I didn't even hear about that. I'm sure he's murdered. What we at 100? What's the number now?
I think it's 100 and something.
100 and something counts of murder, because that's what they are. Right. And when this is over, Hegseth need to get charged with 100 and something counts of murder. And they might even just put something on there, because who knows the real count of how many people he's killed. And because we didn't get, and so this war overseas, this is international news, and we didn't got to Ukraine. The whole thing is United States driven. And this is that war machine. This is that war machine that a lot of people are profiting on. I hate to say it like that, but it's a cold-blooded way of looking at it, but it's nothing new. This goes back to Roosevelt, I think it was him, FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave that speech about the military-industrial complex, and that was in the, 40s or something? And so we're still there. And you were talking about we were talking about reparations at one time.
Right.
And you was like, man, we got no, the money. I'm like, please. They're spending $1 billion a day. Right. For this unnecessary war, illegal war, and reparations could have been paid out 5-10 times that. You get what I'm saying? Right. So as far as black people are concerned, I'm just saying as far as this black person is concerned, this America, I think it's about that time. In fact, most empires don't last more than 250 years.
Right.
And so it's about that time anyway.
Expiration date?
Yeah, we're at that time anyway. The empire seems to be collapsing.
And we can revert back, how we've always said on this show is that all of our subjects, topics, conversation, they all intermingle. And then I can go and circle back around, circle the block, and come back to say, you're talking about with this war and how much money it costs, and then how you do a reparation. We can do the same thing and say how that same money could be could have been put back into the
Right.
Department of Education.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, then we're going to take a break real quick, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the topic board. We're going to pull the topic board up, and we're going to talk about the education again and the politics of how this relates off of the topic board. So we'll be right back. Take this quick break. All right, we're back. Back to the topic board. We always have these topics that come on in our intro, and that kind of cover all the issues that we talk about. And this one just is education and politics. I want to kind of discuss that. Education and politics go together, to me. You can't separate the two, especially now it's clear as day. And I don't think that, and by design, as you were just pointing out, the education what do you think about your education when you came up? In school, 1979. What do you think?
I
about
guess at the time, because I had nothing to compare it against. So at the time, I'm thinking status quo. Everybody is getting the same education that I was. You had the Kumdalas and the Dubalalas. The people in the class that. But then again, that was just one or two people. But in my eyes, everybody else in that classroom was equally educated, just like I was.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt about education. Of course, as I got older and went into the world, I found out there was a lot of things that was missing my education. For example, nothing at all dealing with African American studies. And then there was other schools that, friends of mine from New York and all, and they tell me that it was mandatory for them to get, because like you say, my education talked about Eli Whitney. My education talked about George Washington. Of course, we got lucky. We got George Washington Carver.
we got George Washington. Everybody got George Washington Carver. He was a great inventor.
Right, exactly. So, those are the things. But then again, you got to look at it from the scope is that, and I understand it now, the scope of where I was from, Louisiana. And is that this is what they want us to know.
Right. That's the state policy.
Exactly.
The education, because that goes into what we were saying earlier.
Politics,
when the politics of.
Yes, good. Yeah.
So they got all this money. All this money has come to the states, right? And as you pointed out, the states set their curriculum. And right? Okay. We looked at the description of the education, the federal education department has nothing to do with setting curriculums, and as far as I could tell. But in my perspective, my education in high school was when I went to Oxford High School in Mississippi. That's a college town, Ole Miss. Remember, if anybody lived down south, the Ole Miss Rebels. That's the town I came from, and so I had a lot of access to the campus, and also the schools were, when I came up, were filled with probably professors' wives and stuff. So I had a good education as far as high school. And that's why I know about, because when I got to college, the freshman year was just like review, and I cruised through that with A's and B's easy. Yeah. Didn't even study that much at all, and so that tells you I had a good education. And it was integrated. Matter of fact, they taught. Now, I didn't know the difference when I was coming up K1 to K12. I had no clue that this was something new, and so as far as competing, that was that's what we. You want to get an A, you want to get a B. Of course, you're peeking over to see what somebody else got in their test. And black kids I grew up with, and we can go home and find them now. They're very sharp, and so as far as but I think that was a local school was already in place. That curriculum was already in place,
And and it would be surprising, just for me to hear it, and I'm pretty sure it'd probably be for other folks because you've already stated that you're from Mississippi. Is that even me? I say, oh, okay. To hear you saying is that your school, how well staffed that they was, and like you said, and how they prepared you to go. Like you say, your freshman year was just like a refresher. College. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's pretty. So basically, that same program that the way that you saying that you was school, they have that in some schools, and that when the kids graduate from high school, they already have their associate degree.
Yes.
Yeah. So that probably would have been, if that was the program that they put in place, that probably what you would have had when you came out of high school, just based on that. But going back to the subject you're talking about with politics and education, you are so right in the sense that, and that's how I tie those, because like you said, the state, they get that money from the federal government, but the state decide where it goes. And like you had said earlier, is that, they decide, no, we're not going to fund this school over here in this area. We're going to make sure this school here. So whenever somebody come into town, where they going to take them at?
Right.
They're going to show them that school.
And that brings up another subject of private schools and privatizing schools, because I think that's the trend today. That's what their thing is about, privatizing schools, because they're going back to segregation. That's you go to these private schools, you need a little income, like six-figure type income. And that's where I find that this is just another form of desegregation. Now, that being said, we are in 2026, and the attack is on. The kids don't seem to be prepared. I think that's what Uche was referring to as far as the parenting. Now, mind you, my mindset when I was coming up, my mother worked at night, the swing shift. She wasn't home to tell me to do my homework. Right. I was self-motivated because of the people around me emphasizing education. And you got to have a goal in life and what you're going to do. And even in the schools, I told you that story about my school counselor. When I was going to get out of high school, as much as they put in me to go to college, I was like, I want to go to Air Force. I want to join the military. I mean, this college thing is taking too long to get me some money. My school counselor, who was black, when I told her I was going to the military, the disappointing look on her face, she said, hey, let do this for me. I want you to go down. She wrote it on the paper. This date, go down to Ole Miss. Had to go down to the campus. Take this SAT. Then she wrote another thing on there. On this date, I want you to go take this other test, the ACT. So I had SAT and ACT. I didn't know what they were. Right. I was just following her instructions. She said, I'm going to have you come back next month to get a couple of months to get your scores. Came back in. She looked at me with big eyes and a big smile. She opened up the folder. She said, Kelvin, you scored high enough to get a scholarship. Yeah, so, what's that? The scholarship. That's how, I needed guidance.
Right.
And she got, she sent me to Mississippi Valley State as a black school. Best decision I ever made in life. One of the better. But I'm just saying that support around me made a difference in my life. But you got to have a white person. I don't think would have did that for me. They would have just settled and said, "Yeah, that's what black people do. They go in the military or be a carpenter, and we ain't got the cotton fields no more for you, but we can." So I think that the integration of the schools helped. But like I said, in today's world, in today's school, I don't think they have that support system. And in fact, I think there's a lot of stereotyping going on, as I think it was pointed out earlier, the guidance. But go ahead.
But that's what I was talking about. Just what we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. Is that you saying is that individual not just happened to be, she was a black
Counselor.
counselor. I don't know. Was your school majority black?
Oh, no. It probably was 30-40% black.
Okay, so even that being said, that even stands out more. Is that it shows you is that, you know, I was telling you about that desegregation. Is that we lost that somebody to take that interest and saying, no, young man, this is not, you know, you don't have to go into the military, you know, putting your life in harm's way, you know, for that, because you're smart and you educate. Not saying anything negative about the military, because military, you know, hey, it done good by me, so so I ain't got no complaints. But then again, that's exactly goes back to what we talked about last week, is that when you said that person told you, do me a favor. In other words, how invested she was in you getting an education.
That's right.
You know, and that's the part.
And that so, and by the way, that integration, as I told you, when they were integrating, I told you my dad was a teacher,
Right.
and he didn't make the cut.
Right.
He was a science teacher, but he didn't make the cut. I don't know if he taught and he taught the black. It was segregated then.
Right.
Now and but I say all that to say that some other teachers came into the integration, some didn't.
Right.
But that was the best. I think where we are today, I think that horse is left. That doesn't happen today. In fact, if I understand it right, the black teachers, as far as male, is like less than 5%. And so back in my day, we had black teachers,
Right.
and you know they had them in there somewhere. You could see
Right.
it. The vice principal was a black, or
Right.
the principal was
Same
black.
vice
They made sure that there was integration going on. But in today's world, because things have changed in America, especially with I'm going to see it, you know, with the third leg, we got a country within a country of Latinos,
Right.
Hispanic. Now this is going to get a little touchy, but a lot of, if you look, I was looking at that when I was reading it Wikipedia. I was looking at how Hispanics get double dipping into the funds, you know, with the bilingual thing and this and that.
Right.
And so I'm just saying the game has changed. In fact, when you go to these schools, the ones I go to that have a high Latino population, I see where the black kids kind of get squeezed out. Right. Because they don't have that dual language, that bilingual language,
Right.
and then all the teachers are bilingual. And so that brings me to this segregation question again. I think, I hate to say this, but I think with this, I think we would fare probably better if we went to a certain extent to a certain type of segregation. To me, only because the black kids, from what I've seen now, they don't get the resources or the support that they need in those K1 to K12. And that's just my opinion now. That don't make it right, but I'm gonna speak what I think. And by this time, I mean that's what. Hey, me and Trump he probably loved me because I was like, yeah, man, I don't think this is working out. You know, you guys are a bunch of crazies over there, and we'll do better to go our own way. In 2026, that is. All I'm saying is that I think things have served their purpose, and where we are today, we're in a crisis mode in America across the board.
So you're saying from the politics and education standpoint, you're saying based on the political environment that we're in right now, you think it'll be best for African American for us to
Yeah, as far as education.
to segregate.
Yes, as far as education. We already segregated. Like I said, we was talking that go in these schools right now, I guarantee you're going to have the blacks over here and the whites over here and the Latinos over here. You might have a few mixed in. I get that.
Right.
And that's fine. I find nothing wrong with that. I don't want to put nobody in a uncomfortable position to be sitting with people that don't even, because I had this experience in corporate America one time. I'll share this with you. Standing there talking to my boss, he was from Honduras, Latin America. I think it was Honduras. And, he spoke perfect English, because he was my boss. This other Latino guy who worked in the facilities, a plant guy, facilities, we call it. We was standing having our chit-chat, me and the boss, just small talk. It wasn't even really about work, just small.
Right.
This Latino guy who worked at the, had nothing to do with, our department. And it was fine for him to come up and butt his nose in our, conversation. I had no problem with that. That's not unusual. But when he butted his nose in our conversation, he started speaking in Spanish, which I don't know any Spanish, and he speaks perfect English.
Oh, wow.
This is an insult to
Yeah, it
me.
is.
But to my boss's credit, he answered him in English.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. And the guy got to know. You know, he looked at me, and he looked at me crazy. Yeah, because I was pissed off.
Right.
You know, and because I could see if you couldn't speak English and you had an emergency,
Right.
but to come up here and insult me like this, you know, I didn't let, you know, like I say, my boss cleaned it up. But all I'm saying is that that was in the workplace. So, and that was just a certain bias, a certain bigotry. Yeah. We all have it. Every group has it. Now, don't get it twisted. We all have these biases built in our system, you know, these prejudice built in our system. Not that they are right or not, but, you know, you have to acknowledge them. And so, you know, that in my opinion, maybe it would be better that as you know, I think it was Malcolm X, maybe, you know, that we separate right now to get ourselves together, because Trump is tearing this thing down. He's tearing it down fast, and we need to regroup. And as a people, we're not doing very well as a people. Then that the country, it right now is not doing good.
Well,
but go ahead.
No, this right here is a side note to something I heard that you said that is a pet peeve of mine. You saying that gentleman walked up and started speaking to this guy, you know, which he knew. He started speaking to him, and then he started speaking to him in Spanish. I don't care what language he spoke in. If I'm having a conversation with you, and somebody come up and start talking to you,
yes.
If you engage, and like you said, if it's a emergency and you engage that conversation, in other words, you didn't shut me off.
That's right.
Now that is disrespectful.
Yes.
And I take a whole lot of problem with that, and I react to that, and I let them know, you know. And it's
how do you let them know?
How do I let who know? The person
interrupted.
If they start talking to them, I walk off.
Oh, okay.
Because you saying to me is that what that person is saying is more important than what we was talking about. It's almost like they saying, "Oh, forget what y'all talking about. Let me go ahead and start this conversation." You know, I'm not going to do that to nobody, because what you should do is come and stand over to the side and be recognized.
Okay, so you saying one rude act deserves the kindness of another rude act.
How am I being rude by walking off? You're not talking to me anymore. How am I being rude?
Well, how
am I being rude?
Yeah, I get you.
I'm just saying, I'm not being rude.
No, the initial is cause and effect.
Right.
I know it's cause and effect.
Right.
You didn't cause the problem.
Okay, but you gave the
effect. Cause and effect, brother.
Exactly.
I say about that.
Exactly.
Don't start none, won't be none.
Exactly.
But that's the right thing. I like your style. Just, hey, sometimes just better just walk away. All right. Did you have anything else on the subject? We're going to come back. We're going to talk about entertainment and the workplace dress code part 2. We talked about the females last time.
Yeah,
and we're going to follow with the males this time, a little entertainment. And so we'll be right back. All right, we're back. Entertainment section for the last 10 minutes of the show. As we always want to leave it on a high note as best we can. Right. Last week we talked about the dress code. We were talking about the female on the sports section of, I don't know what channel, but she always wears the mini skirts and and the men have their nice suits on, and I was just saying how distracting it was and how that was, to me, unprofessional for the workplace. This week, though, she changed it up. She looked very professional, had her suit on, and that looked like you're supposed to look. I think it was Mother's Day, and that's where you should look for it. And I say that Mother's Day because that's, when you get older, you should have a certain amount of respectability about it. You got to know that younger people are emulating you, maybe to a certain, especially the ones that look up to you. So you need to carry yourself, I think, a certain way. And we were just ragging on her about her short miniskirts and how the one of the commentators for football, he always looks the other way. He never engages her with eye contact or anything. It's just totally rude. But then I thought, well, maybe he's trying to say something to her as far as that. But now you hit me up at the end of the show. Right before we ended, you say, well, what about the men and their outfits? Do they get a little grief on their wear? Do they get a pass? Because we were talking about the tight. I think you were pointing out how tight their pants are, and I was saying, well, yeah. Then they had the sock right there, and maybe 2 or 3 socks. Can you have 3 socks in that area?
I don't know.
You never wore a sock in your. No. You telling me you know? I saw you when you was in the Air Force. You was Master Sergeant. Man, I saw you walking across the parking lot. You had that tight shirt on. Right. Had them emblems on your shoulder. Man, I could have sworn you had a sock or 2 in your pants.
No, never had that problem. Hey, what Donald Trump say? No, he ain't got no problem in that department.
You don't need no sock.
But I was going to say to you, and it's funny that you said it before I said anything to you about it, is that I said, I'm going to tell CC, she dressed up. I saw it. She was on TV last night. I was like, oh, man, she must got the memo.
Yeah, she looks professional.
Yeah, she looked very professional. I was like, man. But then again, she was sitting down. So I don't know, maybe the suit. But see, I ain't gonna.
But let's talk about the men. Let's get to the men. Now, you don't have no problem with the men in their tight suits.
Tight pants. But then again, I have to reflect back to, and it's the same thing with the women, is that that's their style. So we can't expect for people, because people always say, I'm old school, which we are, is that because we in that group that we right below the old school, and right above the new young school. So we are almost like straddling the fence, in the sense is that we can understand and see some of the things that they're doing, and we like, oh, okay. And then we see what the olds, and we got our guidance from them. So I'm saying now for both the men and the women, is that you dress for the occasion. But then again, because and it's funny, I had a friend of mine that told me that individual came to a job interview in flip-flops.
I've seen that.
Right, but I'm saying is that, what we all remember, man, we sitting in that mirror, we dressing, changing clothes 2 or 3 times to make sure that everything is prim, but that's not a requirement no anymore.
Did he get the job?
Oh, no. No. And you know why?
Why?
Because the person that was interviewing is my friend. He's old school.
Yeah.
And they no matter what goes on in the world, they're not going to change that.
Right, and I believe in that, because I think the way you dress reflects your personality or your outlook. As you say, if you dress, people tend to judge you on first appearance. I think, in my opinion, and I think dress is just the beginning. And, like, for instance, when people go to church today, they don't, like you say, flip-flop is no thing in church today, short pants. In my day, that was totally out. But today's world, as you said, looking down behind us, the generation behind us, dressing up in your dress shirt and a nice pair of slacks and some dress shoes, that's unheard. It's kind of foreign to them. It's like an insult to dress up. I don't understand it, because, like you say, I'm from a different place and time. That's my background of dress to impress. That's our motto, where I come from. And you don't need to be taking any chances when you're trying to get a job that you're going to see that, you're asking a lot of an employer to overlook this because the employer can't help but think, well, if he has this nonchalant attitude now, just in the interview, when he gets the job, I can imagine, so
the nonchalant.
And since we were talking about the education department, this is something that I don't think they do, and one of the most crucial things, interviewing skills. And I look at some of these curriculums in the schools; they're so outdated, even in technology, where the world is moving to today. They're not preparing these kids for what's to come. In the robotics of AI, this and that. Some schools are. Right. The private schools, for certain, they do their research. They see the future. They know what's going to be needed here and there. And so the world is changing, but I still think professionalism will always stand because that kind of even reflects on your, personality. But go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. The thing that, my mother said when we was younger is that one thing that we wanted to always make sure, like you just said, when we dress, we're pretty much dressing to be impressive. And then see now what the dress is, I never understood it. Matter of fact, I don't think I own a pair of all these jeans with all these.
Yeah.
I mean, and they are buying them out of the store like that.
Yeah.
And when we was young, like you get a hole in your pants, what they do, your pants put a patch behind it. You know what I'm saying? Exactly.
Keep on rolling.
They keep on rolling. But I'm saying, but now because of the style, that's how, cut up here.
And I see that too, but I just think that's just a thing that people, I hate to say it, we're just gullible like that. You telling me the holes in the pants of the stock like that?
Yeah.
And you could rip those, and you're going to go and pay $75, $80 for something. I could have made that and ripped. You're right. That's in the thrift store.
Exactly. Goodwill.
That's the thrift store place.
Right.
But we're down to the last minute, brother. And on the entertainment section, real quick, we'll probably talk about this next week. The NBA, I just look at the way they fall down, the way they whine, the way they this and that. It's a distraction to the game. Every call is a challenge. And every time you fall down, I saw the one guy for New York. I can't remember his name. The big guy. What's the big guy name for New York? Cat. Fall down. I don't know if so what happened. He was flopping around like a fish, right? I thought, man, he's out the game. Man, he's really hurt. This guy comes back in the next play. I'm like, what, man? That is so fluff. I'm not. So next week we're going for entertainment. Next week we're going to talk about is the NBA more fluff than it used to be. I heard the young people say that a lot back in our day there was a lot of steroids going on, so that's why the aggression came along. But like I say, they were tough. And if they hit the floor, they jumping back up. Right. You know what I mean? They ain't gonna be whining about all this and that.
Steroid wasn't in basketball though.
Nah, just
I hear what you're saying. That. Right.
But next week, that's what we're talking about. Is the NBA fluff?
Gotcha.
I think it is. Like Larry Berry say, back when the NBA was legit.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. But hey, for those who are joining us, be sure to check our website at www.blackmiddleclasstalk.com. We have a good website. We're still working on putting it together, and so, was there anything else before we sign off?
Yep. Thank you for coming out, and like you said, a good segment today, and we look forward to anybody, like you said, to reach out to us and let us know anything that you want to be able to have a conversation about, and you can come on and have the conversation on with us. And thanks for coming out.
Right on. As the ancestors would always tell you, always do the right thing.
Peace.